Hello and welcome back to episode 2 of the Me First podcast. If you are new here, this is a podcast all about women's health and wellness, self-care, self-worth, self-development, and pouring into your own cup first. My name is Nadine Babensi and I'm going to be your host today. For today's episode, I am really excited about this topic. We are going to be talking about the menstrual cycle, and we're going to be covering all of the phases. We're going to be talking about the most optimal way to strength train in each phase. So get comfortable. I have my tea. This is raspberry leaf tea. It is almost that time of the month for me. This is really helpful for menstrual cramps. I get the traditional medicinal kind. I grabbed this one from Target. I have my candle lit. It is raining outside, thundering. So if you can hear that, enjoy the ASMR. I have been studying the menstrual cycle for about 3 years now. It is something that I am super passionate about. We unfortunately are not taught about this stuff in school. And once I started learning about it, it really just changed my life. So many things started to click and make sense, like why during certain times of the month I had more energy, or I was more irritable, or I was more social, less social. And it really just comes down to our hormones at play and the hormonal fluctuations. But before we get started, I did want to state one thing, and that is that not all women menstruate and not all people who menstruate are women. That is very important to keep in mind. So when I refer to people who bleed, it is to be inclusive and mindful of this. It is a pretty, I don't want to say sensitive topic, but it's not talked about very much. And I feel like only in recent years has it come up more. The purpose of this episode is simply to spread awareness about the hormonal changes that occur in people who bleed's bodies and help teach something, help maybe bring to light things that we're not taught. And we really should be. This should be a class in all schools. And until we're there, we have podcast episodes like this. I do have to say I am not a professional or expert in this by any means. I'm just a girl who did research and found a lot of answers to questions that I had in my personal life. And if I can help someone realize something in their lives, help them in any way at all, then my purpose is fulfilled. Without further ado, let's get into the episode. Now, if you guys see me looking down, I'm either looking at my notes, or I did a Instagram series on my highlights about a year ago, and I covered everything from each phase to its impacts, and I'm going to link that below so you guys can check it out. And there's going to be a Pinterest link as well as resources for you to dig into and learn more on your own. But this is going to be a very foundational and general episode to start the learning process about the menstrual cycle and phases. And it's just something that I find really crucial to know as someone who bleeds. And the same way it changed my life, I hope it could change yours as well. Okay, so the menstrual cycle is made up of 4 phases. The first phase is the menstrual. The second is follicular. The third is the ovulatory, and the fourth is the luteal phase. And these 4 phases are marked by hormonal fluctuations. So as we go through the 4 phases, there is going to be a rise and fall in 5 main hormones. These hormones are the follicle stimulating hormone, which stimulates the ovary follicle to prepare an egg for ovulation and estrogen release. The luteinizing hormone, which triggers the ovary to release an egg at ovulation, which leaves an empty follicle. The third is estrogen, which prepares the uterus lining for a possible pregnancy and thins cervical mucus. The fourth is progesterone, which thickens and maintains the uterine lining, and it turns off the luteinizing hormone and the follicle stimulating hormone, and this triggers menstrual bleeding when it drops. And the fifth is testosterone, which peaks around ovulation to increase libido. And these 5 hormones, I'm going to have the picture above of the graph. If you are listening to this, basically the hormones are going to be at their lowest during the menstrual. They're going to begin increasing during your follicular phase, which is around week 2. And they're going to peak in ovulation, which is the shortest phase. It usually lasts from 2 to 4 days. And in the luteal, our highest hormone is progesterone. So that is when we are feeling our most irritated, and it may feel like we are just very emotional during this time. This is the PMS that we often hear, and that is all thanks to progesterone, and your estrogen is also really high at this time. So we can thank those two for the wonderful feelings that we feel right before we get our period. I don't know about you, but right before my period, I feel like my life is going to shit. And then I get my period and I'm like, that makes so much sense. Your period can impact so many things, such as your skin, your energy levels, your diet, and exercise. And we're going to go into each one specifically, but for now, as we are in the menstrual phase, I want to focus on how we're feeling in this one. So when it comes to our energy during our menstrual phase, it is completely normal to be lower on energy. We are quite literally shedding that uterine lining, and during this time, it is a time that we are called more inwards because our body is quite literally going through it. And during this time, it is really helpful to focus on more self-care, taking things slow, meditation, setting intentions, doing nothing if you are able to do so. Save your planning social events for more during your follicular phase, as this time it's really helpful to just pour into yourself a little bit more, focus on going inward. And during this time, we are very intuitive. So for me, I make note of everything that comes up. I journal about it. I don't act on it, but I do just keep it in mind. And that really helps as we move out of the menstrual phase. Now, when it comes to your nutrition during this phase, warm soups, stews, iron-rich foods such as red meat, fatty fish such as salmon, these are all going to be very helpful to help support your hormones. And that wraps up the menstrual phase. This is day roughly 1 to 7, depending on how long or short. And one thing that I wanted to mention is that we are all so different when it comes to the timing. If it's one thing we are not, it is cookie cutter. And there could be guidelines online, and especially what I'm sharing with you guys, but it is a case by case, human by human basis, and it varies so much. And that is why do not take everything, as it's said and done. It definitely takes time to learn your own flows, your own patterns, and there is beauty in learning that about yourself as well. You get to know yourself better, and I think there is so much beauty in that. Another thing that I really want to mention before we get into phase 2 is that taking birth control may or may not alter the entire cycle. And the second is that a normal cycle ranges from 28 to 35 days from the day that you bleed to the next day that you bleed in your following cycle. And I realized that I have PCOS, and I got diagnosed for that about 3 years ago, which is also around the time I started doing more research into this stuff. And I think, I may be wrong, but I think that it is due to having higher testosterone. I've learned that mine naturally comes from every 33 to 35 days. And prior to that, I thought there was something wrong with my body because I've only ever heard that the cycle is every 28 days and anything that falls out of that is irregular, but that is not the case, and they really do vary in length. Every phase varies in length for every person, and it is all completely normal. I'm also going to link research articles to all of this stuff so that you guys can check it out for yourselves, but I just wanted to mention that. And this is not to talk down on birth control. I have many friends that take birth control and it has helped them so much. I've had friends that have tried one kind, didn't enjoy it, had pretty bad side effects, tried another kind, and it works great for them. So that just goes to say even more that we are all different, and what works for you might not work for someone else, and what works for someone else may not work for you, and to just keep trying things out, learning your body, and most of all, being patient and giving yourself grace on this journey of learning your own body. Moving on to phase 2 of the menstrual cycle. This is the follicular phase, otherwise known as inner spring. So the follicular phase begins after bleeding stops. This phase lasts about a week until we ovulate, and ovulation marks the end of phase 2. Our energy levels / productivity / desire to be social, all of these are up from this point on. The world is our playground in this phase. We are a lot more productive. During this time, our ovaries are preparing to release an egg and our uterus lining is regrowing. Our estrogen levels rise and we are able to create and brainstorm and start projects. And this follicular phase lasts roughly from day 6 to day 14. So this is just the time for us to where we kind of feel like we're getting back to ourselves. It's great for trying new things, planning, starting new projects, problem solving, brainstorming. Our energy is sharp and we are ready for the world in this phase. Moving on to the ovulation phase. This is phase 3. And this is otherwise known as the inner summer. This is my personal favorite phase. I don't know if it's because this is the phase that I push for personal records at the gym and I'm able to lift the heaviest, or because I am most social during this phase, but it really just feels like the most fun time. The ovulatory phase lasts 2 to 4 days and it marks the end of the follicular phase. It is the midpoint of the cycle between follicular and luteal, and this is the phase where it feels like we're flirting with life. It's just fun and confidence is at a high. Your skin is glowing. It is, as I mentioned before, your strongest days in the gym. And the ovulatory phase is where we have peak energy, mood, and hormones. I call this the hot and bothered phase, and you're just going to be feeling extra sexy, and who doesn't love that? This phase is days 15 to 17 in your menstrual cycle. A lot of people say that during this phase, they get like one good week a month, and that is the follicular into ovulation. This is our best week. This is when you're probably gonna be feeling like your best, most happiest self, and that reigns true for me as well. This is your most likely phase to get pregnant. So if you are active, be extra mindful during this time, and just know that your ovary is releasing an egg and your cervical mucus is slippery and your libido is very high. This phase is when you're probably going to feel most feral. So enjoy that and do with the info what you will. During this time, socializing, networking, connecting with people are going to be the best. Moving on to the final and phase 4 of the menstrual cycle, which is the luteal phase. This is otherwise known as inner autumn. The luteal phase begins right after ovulation and it lasts about 2 weeks until the cycle repeats with phase 1, which is what we know as our period. And this is what I like to call the wind down phase. So during this phase, you really want to nurture yourself, rest. You're going to have lower energy, higher cravings. Your hormones are building up the uterus lining in case a fertilized embryo is implanted. And what's going on with your hormones is that your progesterone and estrogen increase, then decrease if not pregnant. During the luteal phase, your body temperature actually increases, and so does your metabolism. You need to be eating a little bit more. That is also why you are feeling hungrier. Larger meals, completely normal. And then after the luteal phase, it all begins over again, starting with day 1 of your menstrual cycle. Now I want to talk about the best ways to strength train for each and every phase. So for your menstrual phase, it is completely normal to not be able to lift as heavy, have as much energy, especially for the first 2, maybe even 3 days. So I would say your best bet is to focus on doing the best that you could do in the gym. Focus on low to moderate weight if you do decide to lift. If not, focus on mobility, light walks, yoga. I personally love to strength train during my menstrual as well because I find that I have the energy to do so typically, and I just take it low and slow. I don't focus on doing too many reps or too high of weight. I do the best that my body can do, but I find that when I do skip on my menstrual, that it leads to me having worse cramps, more lower back pain, and I really enjoy it during this time. But as I mentioned before, every single body is different, and really experiment and find what feels best for you. During your follicular phase, as energy is rising, this is when you can start to lift moderate to heavier weights. You can start upping your reps as well. You're going to have more energy, so more cardio. I typically get back on the Stairmaster during my follicular phase, whereas during my menstrual, I focus more on high incline walks, walking outside, and that kind of stuff. Lower impact on the body, but still movement nonetheless. Moving on to movement during your ovulation. This is your best week to push the heaviest weight that you can. You're really going to surprise yourself. Your hormones are backing it up, your energy levels are backing it up, and you're going to be able to do, you can do higher reps, but I would recommend sticking to lower reps during this time and focusing on higher weights. And this is my favorite week in the gym. I look forward to it every single cycle, both inside and outside of the gym. So that is my recommendation for the ovulation phase. Moving on to your luteal phase, which is your longest phase. During the first week of your luteal phase, you can stick to moderate to heavy weight, and you can keep the reps up there as well. Do the best that you can this week. You should still be having good amount of energy. Really important part of your luteal phase, and I recommend this if you are consistent in the gym. You go every single week, anywhere from 3 to 6 days a week. You can definitely still make progress in the gym with only 3 days a week of weightlifting. I am typically there 5 to 6 days a week. So the point I'm about to say now is a deload week. This is a week where I focus on lower weight and low to moderate reps. And this isn't really by choice. This is what I find my body asks of me during this week. I don't have the energy, but I do still really enjoy movement during all my weeks. And I find that having this deload week not only is in alignment with my energy levels, but is really helpful for kind of a reset since I am pushing heavy weight majority of the time. So I really recommend taking that week before your period to really focus on form and slowing down your movements and being more mindful in the gym. I really lock in during this phase because I'm not focused on PRs. My energy is lower naturally, so I get there, I lock in. and it really helps me be able to continue with my progressive overload, which, if you are not familiar, is upping either your weight or your reps week by week, and that is how you continue to build muscle and make progress in the gym. So those are my recommendations for movement during each phase and how to strength train during each. To wrap up today's episode, I want to go over some mindset shifts, and then we'll move into homework and some resources. So first, when it comes to just how we think about our periods, growing up, I learned that your menstrual was something to kind of hide, be ashamed of, and that is truly not the case. It is something natural, and if we're gonna have it, we might as well embrace it. It is a blessing to be in tune with our changes. So a couple mindset shifts that helped with that was, in the old mindset, it would be, I hate having a period. New is, I am grateful for my period because my period tells me vital information about my health. And one way that I could see this is when I find myself to be more stressed, or a period of transition in my life, whether that be school, work, whatever it is, I find that my period will come a little later. Sometimes it will skip. However, I do have PCOS, which is a polycystic ovarian syndrome, and irregularities in your period can be due to that. Now, we don't have a lot of information about PCOS thanks to the patriarchal capitalistic society that we live in. And I promise you that if cisgender men bled, we would have all of the information in the world about it. There would be so much research. We'd probably have like menstrual leave or something. I don't know. I don't want to get into that. It angers me. But what I will say is that one of the best things that we can do is live based on our personal experiences. Until the information, the research, the funding catches up, which I do have hope and belief in my heart that it will, that is our best bet, listening to each other and working from there. Moving on to our next mindset is, I need to work out even though I have low energy. And the new mindset would be, I respect and listen to my body's needs when it tells me to rest. And for me, during my luteal phase, I would think I'm lazy, I'm not disciplined, something's wrong with me. And unlearning that felt like such a relief and a lifting of burdens on my shoulders, because I knew that there are hormones fluctuating in my body, and these changes and energy levels are so normal, and to begin working with myself rather than against myself. Moving on, I wish my body was more consistent throughout the month. New mindset, I embrace my cyclical nature because it brings on different strengths throughout the month. And that is so, so true. Old mindset, I'll never heal my body. New mindset, healing is a journey, and I am grateful for my efforts so far. And if you're listening to this podcast and you have gotten so far, I'm really, really proud of you, because you are taking the time to learn and expose yourself to new information that is going to help you so, so much down the line. And even now, it's going to open up your mind to new perspectives and hopefully even start new conversations with people, new research, and who knows where we're going to be in a couple years with this. Because just in the last 3 years, 5 years, I've been seeing so much more cycle syncing and just information about periods. And I know that it can seem a little bit, I don't want to say unrealistic, but I will say difficult, because this world was not built to support people who bleed. It is seen as a burden rather than a superpower. It is seen as something to tolerate rather than embrace. And it makes it difficult to kind of plan our life and truly fully cycle sync. But I think just being aware of these changes and making slight efforts to support the phase that you are in. And, you know, like how this looks for me is I know that during my luteal phase, I'm going to be pretty tired. During my menstrual phase as well, especially those first couple of days, I am not going to feel like going out and socializing and doing all the fun stuff. So I will purposefully try to plan most of my outings with my girls, or and this could be really hard. Like if your friend has a birthday during when you're not feeling your best, like I get that, you want to support and go and show up. And sometimes I will work against my body in that sense to be there for my friend. And I think that if you do make the decision to stay home, that does not make you a bad friend, but it just goes to show that yes, we are aware of this stuff. No, it's not going to be perfect. And again, just doing the best that you can is the best that you can, and it's all you have to give, and that is perfectly okay. For homework, I have one task, and that is to begin to track your energy levels either by week or daily, starting with the day that you bleed, and to try to have mindfulness around what phase you think you might be in. This takes time. It's going to take months of really just paying attention to your body, your energy levels, how you're feeling. And if anything, you're just going to learn more and more about yourself, get more in touch and in tune with your inner voice. And it is completely normal for it to not be necessarily like on a schedule, whether that be in your notes app or even in a journal. Just taking note, and you will slowly start to see patterns week by week, month by month, and that is how you will get to know your own specific cycle. I mentioned before, we are all so different, and there is beauty in those differences. In terms of resources, I am going to link a couple websites below. I do not have books for this episode because I don't want to recommend anything that I haven't read, and majority of my research is from links online. I'm still constantly learning, but I think that what we have on this episode encapsulates most of it. I'm going to link the Pinterest below. I'm going to have those resources, of course. That being said, we have come to an end of episode 2 of the Me First podcast. If you've made it here, I just want to thank you so much for giving me your time, for tuning in. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you in the next episode.